I used to think that love was about sacrifice until I died for it. Daniel Carter came from a long line of capitalists, and even when the country was in political turmoil, his family never stopped hoarding wealth. My parents, sensing the winds shifting, warned me early on that his family might be labeled enemies of the state. They begged me to cut ties with him to protect myself and our family's reputation. But I was young, naive, and hopelessly in love. I didn't just say no, I ran straight into the fire. I slept with him behind their backs. I threatened my own parents to pull strings, to use their influence to shield him from the investigation. And somehow I succeeded. I thought that meant something. I thought it meant he would stay with me. I thought I'd earned his loyalty. Instead, right after the marriage, he turned cold like I was nothing but a burden, like I was some disease. He barely looked at me. A year later, I was cornered in an alley and beaten to death by a gang. After I died, I thought that would be the end of it. But then came the final slap in the face. He showed up to my grave with my adopted sister, Vanessa Collins, wrapped in his arms, her belly already swollen with his child. I watched, powerless and invisible, as he whispered into the wind, "Claire Bennett, I was the one who had you killed. Vanessa and I were in love long before you ever came back. You had no right to interfere. If you've got a grudge, take it out on me. Don't haunt her anymore. She's pregnant. She can't handle your drama." Then, as if spitting on my grave wasn't enough, he literally kicked my tombstone and threatened to have a priest trap my soul if I didn't behave. I was so furious, my soul ripped itself from the earth. And just like that, I opened my eyes. I wasn't dead anymore. I was back in my teenage body, standing in our living room, listening to my parents ask me to break up with Daniel. Only this time, I didn't argue. I nodded calmly. "Okay," I said. They looked stunned. But before the silence settled, Vanessa jumped in, eyes sparkling, voice trembling with urgency. "Mom, Dad, if Claire doesn't want him, maybe I can marry him instead. Our family's still powerful enough to protect him, right?" I almost laughed. They didn't know. They had no idea that they didn't have any power at all. The only reason Daniel made it out alive last time was because of me. I was the one who saved him, not them. My parents exchanged a worried glance. My mom's voice trembled.
"No, Vanessa.
Your mother died saving me. She asked me to take care of you. We can't risk your safety." But Vanessa, ever the manipulator, cried like her heart was breaking. "I've been loved by you for 20 years, but that love came at the cost of Claire being left out in the cold. I owe her. I owe you both. If we cancel this engagement now, people in the government housing district will say we're scheming, and that will hurt your reputation too." My parents turned to look at me like I was the villain for not volunteering my life again. Like I should have been grateful that their adopted daughter had so much sense. My heart turned to ice. These were the same people who abandoned me for 20 years. Now I was back and still second place to a girl they picked up from a tragedy.
Fine.
I stared right at Vanessa and said, "Why don't you tell them the real reason? You've been sneaking around with Daniel behind my back. Don't act like this is about duty. You just want to marry the man you've been fooling around with." Her face went pale. She blinked fast, forcing more tears. "Mom, Claire thinks I stole your love. I didn't. I've always loved her. I just want what's best for everyone." Cue the gaslighting. My parents turned to me like I'd just burned the flag. "Shut your mouth, Claire," my father snapped. "You're so ungrateful and uneducated." Then, like the universe had a twisted sense of timing, Daniel walked in. It was him, the man who paid thugs to kill me. My body tensed like it still remembered the trauma. My blood boiled. But I stayed still. I watched him walk right up to my father and drop to his knees. "Mr. Bennett," he said solemnly, "I know Claire and I were engaged, but Vanessa is the one who's truly been by my side. I love her. Please let me marry her. I swear I'll treat her well." Then he turned to me, looking down at me like I was trash. "Claire, I know you have feelings for me, but I don't love you. Let it go. Forced love never works. Don't ruin your life over this." At that moment, I knew he remembered too. He was also reborn. In my last life, I didn't know. I was the only one who didn't know anything. No wonder he killed me. He wanted to erase me from the story completely. My parents didn't even flinch. Even when Vanessa had a miscarriage later, they still came to my grave and blamed me for being jealous and cruel. In this new life, I smiled coldly. Daniel, don't flatter yourself. I don't want you. If my parents say yes, go ahead and marry Vanessa. I won't stop you. His face twitched. He wasn't expecting that. Maybe I'd been clingy in the past life, but this time, I was done. The minute he realized I wouldn't chase him anymore, he begged my parents to approve the marriage. And of course, they said yes. My dad even promised to help Daniel's family avoid the purge. Vanessa, now drunk with success, turned to my mom and said coyly, "Can Daniel move in with us? It'll help him separate from his family and avoid suspicion." My mom praised her for her thoughtfulness. Then she looked at me and said, "After they're married, maybe you can move into your unit housing?" Excuse me? This was my home. They were the intruders. "No," I said. "I'm not leaving. If anyone needs to go, it's them." My dad's hand came flying across my face. "Selfish brat," he barked. "You weren't raised here, so stop acting entitled." Vanessa stood by with crocodile tears in her eyes. "Forget it," she sniffled. "Claire's right. I'm just an outsider. I should go." My parents rushed to her like she was their real daughter, hugging her, comforting her. Daniel pointed at me, fury in his voice. "Claire, everything was fine before you came back. You ruined this family. You're a curse." My parents didn't deny it. They actually nodded. Same story, different life. They discarded me like I was nothing again. "Fine," I whispered, my voice trembling. "Let's break all ties. You'll never see me again." My dad raised his hand again, but this time my mom pulled him back. Not out of concern for me. No, they were just worried about what the neighbors might say. I held my chest. My heart physically hurt. I didn't want parents like them. I went back to my room to pack, only to find my pocket watch missing. It was the only thing my adoptive parents left me. I searched frantically. Then it hit me, Vanessa. She'd snuck into my room before. I ran out, eyes red. "Where's my watch?" I asked her directly. Daniel immediately jumped in front of her like some white knight. "Seriously? It's just a stupid pocket watch. Stop acting like she stole a diamond. You're so petty." I ignored him and stared at Vanessa. "Give it back." She avoided eye contact. Daniel pushed me hard. I stumbled back and hit the doorframe, pain shooting through my lower back. Vanessa looked at me with smug triumph. I steadied myself and stormed into her room. "What are you doing?" they yelled, but I didn't stop. I threw open drawers, searched everything. Daniel was livid. "You're a thief. I'll report you to the state enforcers." But then I found it. My pocket watch hidden in her drawer. I held it up. "Go ahead. Let's see who they arrest." Vanessa cowered. "I just wanted to look at it." "She's slandering me." Daniel snatched the watch from my hand and smirked. "This junk? Tell me how much it's worth. I'll buy it back for her." I laughed coldly. "Your family's about to be wiped out. You think you're still rich?" His face twisted. He slapped me again. Harder this time. I hit the ground, my injured back screaming in agony. He pulled out a dollar bill and threw it at me. "Here, take it. This is all you're worth. The watch belongs to Vanessa now." He cradled her lovingly while she smiled sweetly at him, just like he used to do for me. My soul didn't love him anymore, but my body remembered. My chest felt like it was tearing in two. And that was only the beginning. Daniel and Vanessa stood there gloating while I lay on the floor, my back throbbing and the sting of his slap burning across my cheek. I tried to pick up my shattered pocket watch, the only thing my adoptive parents had left me, but just as my fingers grazed the metal pieces, a sharp heel crushed down on the back of my hand. I screamed in pain, my bones practically grinding under the weight. I looked up and saw Daniel towering over me, eyes full of disdain like I was no better than dirt under his shoes. "Remember this pain, Claire," he said, his voice low and venomous. "Don't ever try to take anything from Vanessa again, whether it's an object or a person." His voice slithered like a snake, and as he leaned in closer, I could practically feel the hate radiating off of him. "If you dare cross her again, I'll make sure you suffer 100 times worse." The pain was blinding, but not as sharp as the humiliation. He turned away like nothing had happened, pulling Vanessa into his arms as she clung to him, putting on the perfect picture of a fragile damsel. "It's okay, sweetheart," he whispered to her. "That broken watch means nothing. I'll buy you something better when we're married." I clutched my injured hand and forced myself to stand. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me fall apart. My body screamed, but my mind was crystal clear. I had to get out. I had to hold on to the only piece of my old life that mattered. I took what remained of the pocket watch and ran right out the front door and straight to the nearest state-run repair store. I didn't even notice how people stared at me, a girl with tears in her eyes and blood on her hand, clutching a broken relic like it was her lifeline. "Can you fix this?" I asked the clerk desperately. He gave the watch one look and shook his head. "It's too damaged. The mechanism is destroyed. Can't help you, miss." I felt something collapse inside me. I backed away from the counter, clutching the broken watch to my chest, and crouched on the sidewalk, my tears soaking into the concrete. That watch was more than a keepsake. It was proof that someone once truly loved me. It was proof I mattered. Just when I thought I'd reached rock bottom, a pair of polished leather shoes stepped into view. A gentle voice followed. "Do you need help?" I looked up sharply, and my heart skipped a beat. Standing in front of me was Ryan Thompson, Daniel's cousin. In my previous life, he had every reason to turn his back on me. When Daniel abandoned me, Ryan didn't. Even bruised and bloodied, he showed up to collect my body. He was the one who gave me a proper burial. And now, here he was again, offering a hand to the girl crumpled on the street. His eyes were kind, but behind them was a glimmer of something sharp, something intelligent. "I know someone who can fix that kind of watch," he said softly. "Come with me." My heart tightened. In 2 lifetimes, I had only seen this man a handful of times. But in each one, he'd been there when I needed it most. Maybe that's why I blurted it out without thinking. "Will you marry me?" Ryan blinked. He didn't laugh, didn't call me crazy. He just studied my face for a moment, then nodded once. "All right, let's do it." And just like that, everything changed. The next morning, I went to the housing office to get my letter of introduction. I was nervous, excited, and still a little sore from the previous day's beating. But the fire in my chest kept me standing. I walked straight into the community center to register for marriage. Fate, of course, couldn't let me have peace. As I reached the front desk, I ran straight into Daniel and Vanessa. They were dressed up like newlyweds, practically glowing with smugness until they saw me. Daniel's expression darkened instantly. He let go of Vanessa's hand and stormed toward me. "You really are shameless, Claire," he sneered. "You followed me here? How many times do I have to say I don't want you? I'm getting married today. You think making a scene will stop that?" Vanessa followed, her fake concern already loading up. "Claire, you're embarrassing yourself and Mom and Dad. You're really going to stalk your ex-fiancé to the marriage office?" I didn't even bother responding. I just checked the time and waited for Ryan to arrive. But Daniel wasn't done. "You're so pathetic," he hissed. "Showing up here alone? Trying to guilt me into changing my mind? You think this is going to make me pity you?" I sighed and rolled my eyes. "Relax. I'm not here for you." "Yeah, right," he snorted. "You think anyone else wants you? You're just here to ruin our day." And then, like a scripted entrance, a clear voice called out from behind us. "Claire, sorry I'm late." The 3 of us turned at the same time, and there he was, Ryan Thompson in a fitted gray suit, tall and confident, walking toward me like he belonged at my side. Daniel's face froze. "Cousin? Why are you here?" Ryan didn't even look at him. His eyes were on me. "It's almost our turn at the desk," he said, taking my hand. "Let's go get our marriage certificate." My heart soared. Daniel looked like he'd just swallowed a lemon. Vanessa clutched his arm tightly, whispering something to calm him, but he was clearly shaken. Even as Ryan and I finished the paperwork, Daniel kept glancing over like he was trying to solve a puzzle that didn't make sense anymore. When we stepped outside, he finally snapped. "Cousin," he said, blocking our path, "you're marrying her to use the Bennett's connections, aren't you? You think their family can help you dodge the purge? But they can only save one person, you or me, not both." Ryan looked at him calmly, then tilted his head. "I'm not like you," he said simply. "I don't need a woman to save me. I'm here because I want to be. I'll protect my wife myself." And with that, we walked off. Daniel's face was a mix of rage and disbelief. He wasn't the only reborn one in this story, but he sure was the dumbest. As we approached the Bennett house to pack my things, the real drama began. A group of state enforcers in red armbands surrounded Daniel before he could follow us in. "Daniel Carter," the lead officer said, "you're coming with us for investigation." His jaw dropped. "No, wait, this is a mistake. Vanessa, go get my parents." But Vanessa was already running, screaming for help. "My fiancé's innocent. Please, somebody help him." The lead officer sneered. "No use shouting. Your parents are under investigation too. They can't save anyone." Daniel's face turned white. This wasn't how things played out last time. In his previous life, he'd survived by marrying me. But this time I walked away. And it was over. He spotted Ryan and lunged. "Arrest him. His family has more money than mine." But the officer just scoffed. "Capitalists who help the country are not the same as those who leech from it. The Thompsons turned over their assets voluntarily. Do you have a golden ticket? No? Then shut up." Daniel's knees buckled. He turned to Vanessa, desperate, panicked. But she collapsed to the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. I just stood beside Ryan, hand in hand, as the chaos unfolded. And I knew, without a shadow of a doubt, this was only the beginning. Daniel's screams echoed through the entire street as the state enforcers dragged him away, his neat suit rumpled, his dignity in shreds, and his eyes wild like a cornered animal. He kept looking back at me like I was the one who betrayed him, like I hadn't already paid for his sins with my life in another timeline. I didn't flinch. I didn't blink. I just stood tall beside Ryan, the man who buried my body with his own hands in the past, and who was now watching over me with calm strength in the present. As Daniel was shoved into the back of a black car with red markings, I could almost hear the timeline cracking. That smugness he wore when he stood over my grave?
Gone.
That arrogance he used to crush my hand into broken bone?
Gone.
The man who once acted like he was untouchable had just been touched by justice, and it was delicious. But I wasn't naive enough to think it was over. Not yet. Back at the Bennett house, Vanessa was on her knees in the living room sobbing her lungs out, clutching my parents' legs and begging them to help Daniel. Her fake eyelashes were soaked, her makeup smeared into a tragic Picasso painting, and yet my mother still looked at her like she was a precious gem. "Sweetheart, you have to let him go," my mom whispered, stroking Vanessa's hair. "You don't want to get dragged down with him, do you? Look at us. We can't protect anyone anymore." "But I'm pregnant," Vanessa cried, collapsing into my mother's lap. "You promised my mom you'd take care of me. I can't live without Daniel." My dad slammed the table so hard the teacups jumped. "Enough. If you're smart, you'll cut him off now before it's too late." For once, I agreed with him. But it was almost laughable how fast they flipped. The same parents who threw me away now couldn't even look Vanessa in the eye. I guess they finally realized just how little power they actually had. Ryan and I stood in the doorway, watching the scene unfold like an unwanted sitcom rerun. When my parents noticed us, their expressions shifted instantly. My mom jumped up and rushed toward me, pushing Vanessa aside like she was yesterday's charity case. "Claire, sweetie," she said with trembling lips, "you've made us so proud. You're everything your adoptive parents wanted you to be." My dad walked over, clapped my shoulder awkwardly, and said, "You've done good, kid." really brought honor to the Bennett name. I didn't even try to smile. I just stared at them, all that buried resentment rising up like bile in my throat. "We're done," I said flatly. "The paperwork's been submitted. I'll make a public announcement tomorrow to confirm I've severed ties with this family. From now on, I'm no longer your daughter." Their faces paled. My mom reached for my hand, but I stepped back. "You made your choice. Live with it." Ryan took my hand and pulled me upstairs to collect my things while my parents stood frozen like statues at the base of the stairs. That night, Ryan brought me home to the Thompson estate. I expected formality, distance, maybe even suspicion. Instead, I was met with warmth. His mother wrapped me in a hug the second I stepped inside and said softly, "Don't worry, honey. You have a real family now. We won't let you get hurt again." I don't know how I held it together. That night, in his arms, all the rage, grief, and exhaustion hit me like a wave. I couldn't stop crying. "Why?" I whispered, staring at the ceiling. "Why would you agree to marry me so easily? Why is your family being so good to me?" Ryan didn't hesitate. He pulled me closer, his voice quiet and full of something that made my heart ache. "Because I saw it too," he murmured. "I had a dream, no, a memory. I remembered my past life. I remembered everything. The purge, the way you died, the way no one claimed your body. I remembered being the only one left who gave a damn. So this time, I made sure we handed over our businesses and documented every donation. I made sure we wouldn't need saving. But then you came to me, and you asked me to marry you." I froze, stunned. So he really was reborn too. He didn't say yes because he pitied me. He said yes because he remembered who I was. Because he knew what I did in the last life. I burst into tears all over again and whispered, "Thank you. Thank you for burying me back then. Thank you for still wanting to save me now." He didn't answer with words. He just held me tighter. But peace never lasts long in my world. A few days later, my parents showed up at the Thompson house, their pride apparently buried under desperation. They were back to grovel, this time begging me to save Daniel. "Claire," my mother said, "he made a mistake. Don't you still care about him at all?" I pulled out the newspaper from that morning and pointed to the section where my severance statement had been printed. My mother-in-law stepped out right then, arms crossed, her expression razor-sharp. "You two are unbelievable. You pamper your adopted daughter and cast aside the one who actually built a future. You expect Claire to fix the mess you helped create? If you show up here again, I'll personally report you to the Community Reform Committee for colluding with capitalist roaders." My parents turned pale. With their careers on the line, they had no choice but to retreat in shame. Later that week, after work, one of my coworkers tugged on my sleeve and whispered, "You gotta come see this. It's wild." I followed her to Main Street where a crowd had gathered. People were whispering, pointing, cursing. Up front, the state enforcers were marching prisoners in a public humiliation parade. Tied with ropes, their heads bowed, they wore crude signs around their necks. "Capitalist roader, enemy of the state, traitor." Rotten vegetables flew through the air, eggs smashed into faces, and people chanted like it was a festival. And then I saw him. Daniel Carter. His once polished glasses were cracked, his suit covered in grime and egg yolk. His lip was bleeding, and he stumbled forward with every shove. When our eyes met, his knees buckled. He collapsed and crawled toward me, dragging the rope tied around his torso like a dog. "Claire," he rasped. "Please save me. I was wrong. I was so wrong." He reached for me with shaking hands, leaving dirty prints on my pants. I looked down at him, the man who ordered my death, who crushed my bones, who kicked my gravestone. And I felt nothing. Not pity. Not sadness. Just cold, cleansing silence. I yanked my leg away and grabbed an egg from a nearby basket. Without hesitation, I smashed it into his face. "Down with capitalist roaders," I shouted. The crowd roared with approval. More eggs flew, followed by fists, curses, rotten leaves. Daniel tried to cover his face, but the blows kept coming. "Claire," he sobbed, "you love me. You can't do this." I grabbed another egg. "Because I loved you. You thought you could destroy me. Because I loved you. You thought I'd die quietly. You're wrong, Daniel.
I'm alive.
And you? You deserve every second of this." Then Ryan appeared behind me, wrapping an arm around my waist, handing me a fresh basket of eggs. "Smash them all, sweetheart. If that's not enough, I'll buy more." The old lady next to us clapped with glee. "I like this girl. Here, take my eggs too." I pushed the basket toward her. "Go ahead, Andy. Smash those bastards to hell." As the crowd erupted in laughter and rage, Daniel collapsed fully, face smeared with yolk and tears. He turned to Ryan and begged, "Cousin, please, I'll do anything. I'll be your servant. Just make it stop." Ryan looked down at him like he was trash and said, "You lost that privilege the day you tried to hurt her again. We're done." Someone hurled a bucket of filth, and it splashed all over Daniel's head. He screamed, and then fainted right there in the street. And as Ryan pulled me away from the chaos, my voice was calm, my step steady. "Don't worry, Daniel. That was just the beginning." Watching Daniel collapse in the middle of that chaotic street, drenched in egg yolk, mud, and shame, was like watching the ghost of my past life finally exorcised from my chest. I didn't flinch, didn't feel a single ounce of regret. Not after what he did to me. Not after what he took from me. Ryan held me steady, shielding me from the worst of the crowd's mess, while the state enforcers yanked Daniel back onto his feet and dragged him off to continue the public shaming. I knew this wasn't the end of his punishment, but it was the beginning of mine and me beginning, this time on my terms. Ryan leaned over and whispered in my ear with a smirk, "I would have bought a dozen more eggs if I knew it would make you smile like that." I let out a shaky laugh because, honestly, that was the first time I'd truly smiled in both lifetimes. That night, the Thompsons cooked a quiet dinner, but the air around the table buzzed with unspoken thoughts. I could tell Ryan's mother wanted to ask questions, but was holding herself back for my sake. Eventually, I stood up, cleared my throat, and simply said, "Daniel got what he deserved. That's all you need to know." Ryan squeezed my hand under the table. His parents nodded. That was enough for them. But of course, peace is always short-lived when it comes to people who don't know how to stay down. The next morning, we got a knock on the door. My mother and father were standing there, shoulders stiff, lips thin, clearly forced into it. They hadn't come to apologize. Of course not. They came to beg again. "Claire," my mom began, tones syrupy and desperate, "I know things have been tense, but you were hoping I'd save Daniel." I cut in flatly, arms crossed. Again. My father cleared his throat like he wanted to reclaim some authority, but Ryan's mom came storming out of the kitchen before he could say a word. "You two have some nerve showing your faces here," she snapped. "You threw away a daughter who's 10 times the woman that adopted Brad ever was, and now you want her to clean up your mess?" "She's still our daughter," my mother said weakly, clinging to whatever emotional manipulation she had left. "No, she's not," Ryan's mom said sharply. "She's my daughter-in-law now. You don't get to claim her just because it's convenient." I stepped forward and held up the newspaper with my severance declaration printed in black and white. "In case you missed this," I said coolly, "I'm officially no longer a Bennett. So go beg someone else." My father's jaw clenched, and my mom looked like she might cry, but I didn't care. This was the price of betrayal. And they were just starting to feel it. After they left, I focused on moving forward. Ryan helped me secure a transfer to a new workplace, one where my talents would actually be valued and where no one whispered about my family drama behind my back. I finally felt like I had a future. But the past wasn't done with me yet. The Community Reform Committee launched a surprise inspection, sweeping through homes and workplaces, searching for contraband, anti-revolutionary items, and foreign influences. I wasn't worried. I had already removed anything suspicious. But Daniel, desperate and clawing at any chance to drag me down with him, made one last attempt to ruin me. "She's hiding foreign books," he screamed as the guards dragged him through town again. "Search her things. She's a spy. She's a traitor. I had barely stepped outside when the committee showed up at my door, documents in hand, red bands on their sleeves, eyes full of suspicion. "Claire Bennett," the officer asked. "You've been named in a report. We need to check your residence." Ryan moved to block the doorway, voice firm. "You can't just barge in here. We can when the accusation involves espionage," the officer replied. I didn't hesitate. I stepped past Ryan and looked the officer dead in the eye. "You can search my place. I have nothing to hide. Let's get this over with." Ryan grabbed my wrist, his knuckles white, voice trembling. "You don't have to do this. You don't owe anyone anything." I turned to him and smiled gently. "I'm not afraid. Not anymore." As they searched the house, I sat on the couch, hands folded, completely calm. But then she appeared, Vanessa, holding a book I hadn't seen since the day I came back. A book from my past life, something I must have left behind during the chaos. "Here," she shouted, face twisted with glee. She had this. "This is foreign literature. You have to arrest her." The officer looked at me, then at the book. I didn't flinch. I stood and extended my wrists. "If you believe I've broken the law, then take me in. I'll cooperate." Ryan looked like he was about to explode. Vanessa looked like she'd won the lottery. But then Director Zhang of the committee arrived unexpected, stoic, and definitely higher ranking than anyone else in the room. He looked at the book, then looked at me. Without a word, he walked to a phone and made a call. Moments later, 2 men in black suits showed up with official seals and folders thick with documents. "This is Claire Bennett," one of them said. "A top candidate from the National Science Academy, recruited at 16, formerly part of the Satellite Orbit Project. Her adoptive parents were both national scientists who died in service to the country. She's not a traitor. She's a national asset." Silence. Absolute silence. Even Vanessa's smirk froze in place. The officer from before looked like he'd swallowed a live toad. Slowly, he reached out and untied my wrists. "I'm so sorry, Miss Bennett. We were misinformed." "It's fine," I said calmly, rubbing my wrist.
You did your job.
"Just make sure next time you check your facts before barging into my home." Vanessa's face was drained of color. "That's not possible," she whispered. "She's a village girl. A nobody. How could she?" Her voice cracked. Her reality was breaking. Daniel, who had been hauled into the same room like a rabid dog, looked between me and the documents, his eyes wide and manic. "You're reborn," he said finally. "You knew everything all along." I turned to him, let the truth hang in the air like thunder.
Yes.
"I remembered it all. Just like you did." His knees gave out. He slumped to the floor, laughing, crying, howling like a broken machine. "So, I was the clown this whole time," he sobbed, gripping his head. "I thought I was ahead. I thought I'd win this time." I didn't say anything else. I didn't need to. The room had already answered for me. Ryan took my hand, and we walked out together.
No applause. No fireworks.
Just the echo of truth ringing in our wake. When we got back home, Ryan held me in the hallway for a long time. "You never had to carry it all alone," he said, forehead pressed to mine. "Not in this life." I whispered, "Thank you."
For standing by me.
For remembering. He kissed me, then not out of pity, not out of duty, but out of something real. Something that transcended both lifetimes. And for the first time, I let myself believe I could have happiness again. But we both knew this wasn't the end. There were still people like Vanessa out there clinging to old schemes. Still remnants of my past life, waiting to be dismantled. And I'd face them all one by one. Because this time, I wasn't the sacrificial lamb. I was the storm. Ryan and I barely made it 2 steps outside the Community Reform Committee building before reporters, onlookers, and curious passers-by swarmed around us like flies to honey. Whispers circled me faster than I could keep up with. "She's the satellite girl. She's the genius they almost arrested. Did you see that loser Daniel?" Total breakdown. But I didn't need their validation. I had the truth, and more importantly, I had freedom. I glanced over my shoulder just in time to see Daniel being dragged away again, eyes wild, hair disheveled, tears and snot streaked across his face like war paint. She's lying. I swear she's lying. She's not some genius, he howled. One of the officers kicked him in the back of the knee and barked, "Shut your mouth, capitalist parasite." I didn't flinch. I just tightened my grip on Ryan's hand and kept walking. Inside, I was shaking not with fear, but with the quiet aftershock of reclaiming power. That girl they tried to erase was gone. This version of me? I was someone they couldn't silence even if they tried. When we got home, Ryan helped me remove the thin rope marks still faintly circling my wrists. His touch was gentle, but his eyes were raging. "They had no right to treat you like that," he muttered, jaw clenched. I should have stopped them. I took his face in both hands and said softly, "You did more than enough. You stood beside me when it mattered most." His expression softened, but I could still feel the weight he carried, the guilt he shouldn't bear. I leaned forward, rested my forehead against his, and whispered, "It's not your fault I was once surrounded by fools. But it's your strength that helped me escape them." The days that followed passed in a blur. Everywhere I went, people looked at me with newfound respect or, at least, curiosity. I wasn't just the daughter who got disowned, or the girl who married into the Thompsons. I was Claire Bennett, the woman who stood up to a corrupt system and walked away with her head high. Still, not everyone was thrilled about my transformation. Vanessa started spiraling fast. She couldn't stand being invisible, especially not after all the attention I was getting. One morning, I passed by a nearby government block and saw her pacing outside the door, face pale, clutching a bag to her chest like it contained her last hope. I didn't plan on stopping, but then she saw me and ran up, tears instantly welling in her eyes like she was on cue. "Claire. Claire, please," she gasped, grabbing my arm. "You have to help Daniel. He's not eating. He's losing it in there. They say he might get re-educated or even sentenced. You can't let this happen." I stared at her like she was a mosquito trying to guilt-trip me into feeding it blood. "I already let a lot happen. I let you lie. I let him walk free. I even let you two stomp on my grave. So no, Vanessa, I don't owe either of you anything." She sniffled, trying to play the wounded girl card again, the one that always got my parents to side with her. "But I'm pregnant, remember? Doesn't that count for something?" "It doesn't," I said coldly. "Especially not after you threw me under the bus in front of the entire committee. You don't get to cry family now." "But you're better than this," she whimpered, clutching her belly. "You're not a monster." I leaned in just slightly, voice low enough that only she could hear me. "You're right. I'm not a monster.
But you?
You're not innocent. And if I were you, I'd start praying your baby doesn't inherit your karma." She gasped like I'd slapped her, but I didn't stay to watch the performance. I walked away, head high, heart steel. When I got back to work, one of my coworkers waved me over. "You should come see this," she said with that mischievous grin that always meant drama was brewing. "They're doing another public parade. Big names this time." Curiosity piqued. I followed her to the main avenue where a huge crowd had already formed. And then I saw another humiliation parade, another line of roped-up traitors with hand-painted signs around their necks. And right there, center stage, was Daniel Carter. His suit was gone, replaced by tattered clothes stained with egg and mud. His hair was matted, his face bruised. The sign hanging from his neck said, "Blood-sucking capitalist rotor." I couldn't help the smirk that tugged at my lips. He used to look at me like I was nothing. Now, he couldn't even meet my eyes without trembling. As he passed me, something in his expression shifted. Recognition. Desperation. Regret. He stumbled toward me, knees hitting the pavement as he groveled like a dying dog. "Claire," he rasped, his voice shredded from screaming. "Please save me, I was wrong. I was so wrong. I'll do anything. Anything you want. Just make it stop." People around us started whispering, but I didn't flinch. I just reached into a nearby vendor's basket and picked up a cracked egg. Without a word, I hurled it straight at his face. The impact made a sickening splat, and yellow goo dripped down his chin. The crowd roared in approval. "Down with the traitors," someone shouted. Rotten vegetables flew. Someone dumped a full bucket of spoiled cabbage over his head. Still, he crawled toward me. "Claire, please, I love you," he sobbed. I crouched down and met his eyes. "No, Daniel. You loved the power you thought I had. You loved the control. You loved the version of me who let you walk all over her. That woman's gone. And all that's left is someone who knows exactly what you're worth." I stood up and kicked his hand off my shoe. A woman next to me, a fiery grandmother, who looked like she'd been through a dozen campaigns, grinned and handed me a basket of moldy tomatoes. "Here, darling," she said. "Finish the job." I took one and hurled it with precision. Then Ryan appeared at my side, cool as ever, holding a second basket full of more rotten ammunition. "I figured you'd need these," he said with a wink. "You always do like a proper finish." I laughed, sharp and unbothered. Around us, the crowd kept jeering, the chant growing louder and louder. "Down with the bloodsuckers. Down with the fakes." Vanessa showed up somewhere in the chaos, screaming at the guards, trying to reach Daniel.
Please.
"Don't hurt him. I'll take the punishment. Arrest me instead." But no one listened. Not even the officers who once bent over backward to protect her parents. The truth was, no one cared anymore. Their family's era had ended. Vanessa crumbled on the ground, sobbing as Daniel was dragged away for sentencing. And as he disappeared into the back of the truck, broken and humiliated, I turned to Ryan and exhaled. That was satisfying. "Want to go celebrate?" he asked.
How?
"Ice cream?" I burst into laughter. "After public shaming and a mini riot, you want ice cream?" "Justice and sugar always go together," he said with a grin. "It's science." I took his arm, letting him lead me away from the wreckage of my old life. "Then let's get a double scoop. One for this life, and one for the last." We didn't actually get ice cream that night. The vendor had closed early because of the chaos, and honestly, I didn't even care. Just the idea of me and Ryan, walking through the aftermath of a war I finally won, laughing like we hadn't both lived through lifetimes of pain, that was enough. We went home and shared a quiet dinner instead, one where no one cried, no one begged, no one wore a mask of performative love. Just us and peace, and the occasional sarcastic comment from Ryan that made me nearly spit out my tea. He had this way of grounding me, of reminding me that I wasn't just a survivor, I was alive, and I was finally living. But of course, peace in my world always came with strings attached. The next morning, I found my parents waiting outside the Thompson home again. And this time, they weren't alone. Vanessa was with them, her eyes red from crying, her hands clutched around her stomach like it was a shield. I didn't say a word. I didn't even bother faking politeness. I stepped outside and folded my arms, leaning against the doorway like I had all the time in the world. "What now?" I asked. My mother stepped forward, trying to sound maternal again, like she hadn't tossed me aside like an inconvenient truth. "Claire, sweetheart, we just want to talk."
Talk.
I echoed. "That's funny. Last time you talked, you slapped me, called me ungrateful, and chose your adopted daughter's tears over my blood. So no, I'm not really in the mood for a chat." My father's face tightened, but it was Vanessa who finally spoke up, her voice shaky. "Please, Claire, I know I've done terrible things. I made mistakes. But I'm scared. Daniel's gone. His sentence is confirmed. I'm pregnant, and I have nothing left. Just help me this once. For the baby." My mouth twisted into something between a smile and a sneer. "For the baby? You mean the one you weaponized against me every chance you got? The one you dangled like a reason to keep me silent?" "Sorry, Vanessa, but I'm fresh out of savior energy." My mom started to cry. I didn't feel a thing. My dad tried guilt, saying the Bennett name had been ruined by the scandal, that maybe I could fix it. I nearly laughed. "You should have thought about your reputation before you handed it over to a scheming girl who spent her life trying to become me." Just as he opened his mouth to argue, Ryan's mother stepped outside, arms crossed, eyebrows arched with that same glorious disdain she wore like a crown. "Didn't I tell you two not to show your faces here again?" she snapped. "You've already been lucky Claire didn't expose all of you in the papers. If you're not careful, I might do it myself." My parents froze, visibly shaken by her presence. Even now, they were cowards, afraid not of justice, but of consequences. Ryan came to the door behind me, slid an arm around my waist, and said, "I can call the Community Reform Committee and let them know you've been bothering Claire again. Would you like that?" My mom's face went pale. My dad muttered something about misunderstanding and started dragging Vanessa away by the elbow, her protests fading as they disappeared down the street. I turned to Ryan and muttered, "That was dramatic." "Felt good though, didn't it?" he said with a grin. "A little," I admitted, finally letting myself exhale. For the first time in my life, no one was standing on my neck, telling me to smile through the pain. I was finally free. The days after that were blissfully quiet. I focused on my work, contributing to actual projects that mattered, using the education and intellect I'd almost buried in a shallow grave the last time around. Ryan would walk me to the unit in the mornings, kiss me goodbye like something out of a fairy tale, then wait for me after work with hot tea and the latest scandal he overheard in town. We even adopted a scrappy little dog that liked to chew through the broomsticks and growl whenever anyone with a red armband came near the house. I named him Justice. It felt right. But just when I thought this new life couldn't surprise me anymore, the unexpected happened. One evening, after a routine community meeting, Director Zhang pulled me aside with a strange expression on his face. "Miss Bennett," he said, looking both awkward and respectful, "we'd like you to consider taking on a mentorship role for the next class of academy recruits." I blinked. "Me? Why?" "Because we need people like you," he said simply. "People who've seen the system from both ends and survived. You understand the cost of silence, the value of truth. You're not just smarty-y resilient. And this generation needs to learn from that." I didn't say yes right away. I went home, sat at the kitchen table with Ryan, and told him everything. He didn't pressure me. He just poured me tea and said, "You've always been a force of nature. Now you get to shape the weather." The next morning I said yes. And that, more than anything, marked the real turning point. Not the revenge, not the justice, not even the public humiliation of Daniel Carter or the downfall of the Bennetts. It was choosing to live, to build, to lead, to stop surviving and start thriving. Months passed. Vanessa gave birth alone in a government clinic. No one visited. I heard she tried to name the baby after Daniel, but the clerk refused, saying prisoners under investigation weren't allowed legacy names. My parents faded into obscurity. Their names lost all influence. Their unit was reassigned to a smaller district. I never looked back. As for Daniel, well, word spread he'd been relocated to a reform farm in the far north. Manual labor. Frozen nights. Broken pride. I imagined him there, cold and forgotten, still cursing my name between chapped lips. I hoped he remembered me. Not with affection. With fear. With regret. And if karma worked the way I believed it did, every shovel of dirt he moved brought him one step closer to understanding the cost of betrayal. Meanwhile, I flourished. My students listened when I spoke. My colleagues respected me. And every time someone asked how I'd managed to do it all, survive the disgrace, rebuild my life, marry a man like Ryan, I'd smile and say, "Because I died once." And when you come back from that, you stop letting people write your ending for you. On the anniversary of my rebirth, Ryan surprised me with a gift. A small box wrapped in silver paper. When I opened it, my breath caught. It was a watch. Not new. In fact, it looked eerily like the one Daniel had smashed into pieces all those months ago. I picked it up with trembling hands, turning it over slowly. On the back, an engraving. "To the woman who rewrote time." "How did you?" I whispered. "I found a master who repaired it," he said. "The same one who helped you before. Took months. But he managed to bring it back to life." I stared at the ticking hands. The watch worked perfectly. After all this time, after all the pain, Something broken had been made whole again. I looked up at Ryan, eyes shining, and pulled him into a kiss. Not because he saved me, but because he never tried to own me. Because he saw Menet as a prize, not as a burden, but as a partner. I wore that watch every day after. It didn't just tell time. It reminded me of who I was, and who I'd never be again. So this is my story. I was betrayed, buried, reborn, and rebuilt. I was the villain in someone else's script until I rewrote the whole damn plot. I am Claire Bennett. And I don't just survive anymore. I lead.